To meet this West Plains City Council candidates event at Wages Brewing Company. I am Nate Hudson with Ozark Radio News, and I will be moderating tonight's event. We have gathered questions from the audience, and we have sorted through the questions, and we'll be asking each of the candidates these questions. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to each of the questions asked before moving on to the next candidate. Now, let me introduce you to tonight's candidates. On our left, we have incumbent Jessica Neeson. She is one of the 4 incumbents running for a 4-year term. Her challengers are as follows. To her right, we have Ron Grennan.
Woo!
Mike Burgess.
Woo!
And Paul Bradshaw.
Woo!
The candidates running for the 3-year term are incumbent John Neeson.
Woo!
And challenger Donald McClellan.
Woo!
Thank you. Candidates, you will have 2 minutes to answer each of these questions. Some are geared toward incumbents, some are geared towards challengers, and others are open for everyone to answer. Though we will be going left to right on those questions. The first question tonight will go to Jessica Neeson, and we'll go on. Jessica,
Yes.
what do you believe the city of West Plains needs to do the most to encourage economic growth, and why?
I would say the thing that the city needs to do is we need to concentrate on economic vitality. So looking at our small business community and how can we grow those small businesses. Because if we took all the people who are employed by businesses who were 10 and under employees, they would be one of the biggest employers in town. So I think that in that area it's been neglected for a really long time, and I think that we should be concentrating on that type of growth.
Are you done with your answer?
I'm done.
Thank you. Mr. Grady?
I'm glad she brought up small business. That's one of the main reasons I'm running, is for small business to have a seat on city council. Basically, to promote economic development here in West Plains, I think we need to work on a joint effort between the economic development and the tourism departments, okay? So I think we need to make West Plains a destination place to live. We need to maybe increase some amenities here, get people that want to live here, because right now, college kids especially are deciding where they want to live before they get a job, which is just the opposite of what it was 30 years ago. So if we can attract people that want to live here, bring their job with them, get paychecks from Dallas, Texas, Boston, Massachusetts, get that money into the West Plains economy, I think that'll promote economic development here in town.
Thank you. And Mr. Burgess?
I believe that we need to support our local small businesses, help them to grow so that they get more employees, thereby we have more people employed, increasing the workforce. At the same time, I also believe that we need to bring in some bigger businesses, some factories or something, which they will offset each other, actually help each other to build. The factory workers will go to the small business to purchase lunch, for example, and then the small businesses will buy the product from the big companies.
Thank you. Mr. Bradshaw?
We definitely have a shortage of workers here. You ask any business owners around here, they will tell you that we have a workforce that's low. So we have to somehow or another find ways to bring people to this area that are looking for jobs. We need quality jobs to have people move here. That would stimulate everything. And if we can find a workforce to take care of our small businesses and our places that are here, then it would be attractive for other places to come in. But until we get that done, we're not going to be able to do anything. We're going to be stagnant right here.
Thank you. John Neese?
Well, it gets
you're
pretty
next.
hard not to start just parroting people when it gets to this end of the table, but I agree with almost everything that's been said so far. It's really a two-sided coin. You know, most of the big businesses will say that we struggle to attract workers, and workers will say they don't, you know, there's not a lot that this town has to offer. So I think by bolstering tourism and parks, the events and things that kind of draw people to want to live here, that provides the workforce we need for the businesses. We also hear a lot about infrastructure. You know, you look at Ozarks Healthcare with their massive expansion they've taken on. A lot of that work has been rerouting streets. That's what's going on right now. If we don't have the infrastructure under control, businesses just simply don't want to look at West Plains as a viable place to start. So we really need to get all of that addressed at the same time. I think a lot of that's underway.
Thank you. And Mr. McClellan.
Okay. Like he said it, I agree with every one of them down through there, but we're gonna have to get stuff here for more younger kids. I want to retire here. I was born and raised here. I'm planning on staying here if we can have the economy where I can afford to live here. We need to help the downtown people. We can, and I think there's some tax stuff going on that shouldn't be going on, and I'm getting where I shouldn't be getting. I do work for the city of West Plains, so I have to hold my tongue. And we need to help the small business all we can.
Thank you. We go to our second question. This is for the incumbents. Jessica, would you care to talk about one difficult vote that you made during your time and describe the challenges you faced in casting it with the community's best interest in mind?
All right. Well, there have been several, and I'm going to focus on the Butler House. The Butler House was a house in town that was in our city park. And it was a building that was owned by the city, and a group of citizens really wanted to save the building and had put together a plan of what was going to be done with it. I kind of came in at the end of the decision making, where it had come to a head of where we were going to go. Either it was going to get torn down or this plan was going to be implemented. I went through the entire plan. I looked at it. As much as I would have liked to have seen something done with that house, it just wasn't going to be feasible, and it wasn't something I thought that taxpayers could afford. That's one of our main responsibilities, is to look at every program, the budget, and make sure that we're utilizing tax dollars responsibly. And I just did not see, as part of that plan that came forward, that I could make that promise to taxpayers. So I voted to demolish the building. That was a very difficult decision.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And John Neeson, the same question goes to you. Can you talk about a difficult decision or vote that you made during your time here and describe the challenges you faced in casting it with the community's best interest in mind?
Yeah, so recently we had to vote on utility rate increases across the board. I think that by far has been the most difficult one. So all of those rate increases impact my family, my friends, every one of us that use city utilities are impacted. With electricity, we rely on others to sell us electricity. And if their rates go up, our rates must go up. So projects like the solar farm, while they're terrific and giving us a little bit of autonomy from that, our hands are largely tied. And you take the refuse, all of our trash, we just go to a collection point and then it has to be hauled away. So gas prices go up, collection site rates go up, and we have to respond to that. So while it's very difficult to see, like, this is gonna hurt all of us to get charged an extra 20 bucks a month, 50 bucks a month, whatever it ends up being for each person. If it's not done, then what do? We start cutting services. And that was really, I lost a lot of sleep over that one, thinking about the impact, especially when inflation is as high as it is. Now's not a great time, but the city has to be able to keep the lights on. We have to keep everything moving. So I'd say that's by far been the most difficult, but I think we made the right call.
All right, thank you. The next question goes to the challengers. So, what city council vote did you disagree with in the last 2 years, if any, and why? If there are none, were there any that you strongly agreed with? We will start with Ron Grennan.
I did not, and I don't know if it's a fair answer to give because I have 2 years of hindsight now, but I was not in favor of the mask mandate.
All right, thank you. Same question goes to you, Mr. Burgess.
If I can answer that twofold, one that John touched on was the recent vote to increase our electric rates. At the same time, we're waiting for the solar farm. And then the other one that I would disagree with was the mask mandates, because people were not told what mask to properly wear and how to properly wear that mask. And people wearing bandanas and everything else. So I disagreed with the mandates, whether it's mask or vaccines.
All right, thank you. Mr. Bradshaw?
I was not in favor of the mask mandate. I did not like that idea at all. I don't think we should be telling people they have to wear a mask. I'm just not into it, and then relying on law enforcement to go around chasing people not wearing a mask whenever there's real crime going on, and all of our having to divert from real crime over to that. That was the one that kind of sparked me and got me thinking I need to be on there to do something different about that. But that's just me.
Thank you. And Mr. McClellan, would you care to answer?
Well, the mask thing it's more personal to me. I would vote against it. I didn't want to wear one, but where I work, I had to. I wasn't taking the shot. I think that should be everybody's opinion. If they want the shot, take it. If you don't take it. And like I said again, I work at the city, and I think the people should have had the right to vote on the solar farm. I mean, used to a long time ago in the government, in which I know this is the 21st century, but I think the people should have more say in the government what the city does, especially when it's over a certain amount. And we was informed at the city that we own the solar farm. Now they're telling us we don't own it. So I don't know, without reading the contracts and seeing what's going on with that. But back to the mask deal, I never favored that in the first place, and we shouldn't have had to done it. But that's my opinion.
All right, thank you. We will now move on to the next question. And while this question may pertain mostly towards the challengers, I am curious to know as well with the incumbents. So, Ms. Neese, how will your known associates, or how are your known associations, influence your role as a civic leader?
Well, I am a stay-at-home mom, so I have no business affiliations. I don't come with a lot of baggage in that way, I guess. I don't have a lot of family here. My in-laws just recently moved to West Plains. So I don't really have a lot of associations that impact my decisions. One of the things I did when I was appointed is I stopped serving on any nonprofit boards that I had been on because I was concerned about raising money and also being in the city council position, because a lot of times you're raising money with local businesses and individuals, and then there may be a decision you make on council that may affect one of them, and I didn't want there to be any sort of appearance of impropriety.
All right, thank you. Mr. Grin?
Can you reread that for me, please?
Absolutely. How will your known associations influence your role as a civic leader?
I feel they're going to be very useful. I've got a 20-year track record of community service in West Plains that goes back 20-something years with the Kiwanis, West Plains Kiwanis. I was a 3-term member on the Chamber of Commerce Board, and I'm still very active with the Chamber of Commerce. I was on the Howell County 911 Citizens Advisory Board before it became an elected board a few years ago. I'm missing a few of them in there, but I've been serving this community for 20-plus years. I've had a family business here for just about 40 years now, and have been in every single business in this town probably in one way, shape, or form with some of the products we sell. So I talk to an awful lot of people in West Plains. It's not that hard to figure out. We sell security systems, for example, so it's not that hard to figure out a neighborhood that's being targeted by criminals, because the phone calls I start getting. It's not that hard to determine what people in the city may have a problem with, because when you go in and talk to people, they all start talking about the same subject. So I kind of feel that the associations and relationships I've built over the last 40 years here in West Plains would do nothing but help me.
I don't
Mr.
have any
Burgess.
business to run or associated to that. I've got multitude businesses that I spend time at. I spent 20 years in the military. I'm retired military. I spent a little over 23 years at the hospital working as a nurse. And I go around and talk to different people. I've spent time overseas. And I have found that people want the same thing. They want good health. They want a roof over their head and food on their table, irregardless of their age. And that's one of my concerns, is that if we continue to raise taxes, we're going to affect those that are on fixed incomes. So I don't have a business interest other than I shop at businesses and I support those. That's
Thank you. Mr. Bradshaw, would you care to answer?
Most of the time when people see me come to their house, they're not happy that I'm there. That goes along with 19 years of law enforcement. When I show up, they're having their worst day. It doesn't matter if they were a victim or if they're a suspect. They're not happy to see us there normally. So I don't know how much influence that will have on anything to do with what goes on with the city. But I do have a pretty good track record of working with the DARE program for 18 years and been in schools. So I've reached a lot of kids, I've talked to a lot of people, I meet a lot of parents that way and through that. And I try to listen to what our community needs and talk to parents and listen to the kids, and they tell me what's going on at home. So I've got a pretty good idea of what this community needs. And I feel like I'm in tune with what's going on with the common people here.
Thank you. Mr. Neeson?
Yes, so I would say that all my associations are very helpful. Everything I'm a part of, from my job to the boards I'm on, I love West Plains, so I joined those so that I could just find a better way to serve. Like Jessica stated, I stepped off of a couple of nonprofit boards for the same reason. We're all well aware of potential conflicts of interest, and we know when to abstain from a vote or back away from a conversation, so if we have potential to be biased. But I'm not a part of anything that's going to try to sway my vote on a single issue. But I do think being involved in the community has helped me tremendously in really getting my ear to the ground and know what our needs are.
Thank you. And Mr. McClellan, would you care to answer?
Well, I was born and raised here all my life. I supported United Way. We raised 2 girls and supported Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. And I've always tried to buy local when I could get what I needed at the time. But we still need to support small business and stuff like that.
All right, thank you. On the topic of city taxes, in 2020, a CID sales tax was passed for the Southern Hills shopping area. We'll start with Jessica. Do you support this tax or putting in another sales tax like this? Why or why not?
I voted to approve the additional portion to the CID in Southern Hills. And I did that because, number one, the other CIDs in the area were that ½ cent higher. So I felt like it was reasonable to do so. I also like the idea that there would be some new development coming into the area. The developer had a lot of really good plans. He had those all detailed out for all of us to see where the money would go, what the plans were, and I think we've seen a lot of really positive development there. CIDs are complicated and have a lot of issues, generally speaking. And I think that future, if we were to look at a future CID, I like things in writing. I like seeing plans. I like to know what I'm voting on. And so that's going to have to be part of it. Whether or not we approve it, it would just depend on the project and what people are looking at. It's hard to say without knowing.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Green?
On the whole, I'd probably have to go case by case, but on the whole, I feel that the CIDs are pretty unfair. You've got small business A in a CID that's getting to collect another ¼ cent or ½ cent sales tax that is allowed to spend that tax on their property. So they're getting their parking lot paved, they're getting new lights for their parking lot. Well, business B, who is not in that district, that sells the same product, does not get that revenue back to spend it. Also, it's unfair for the business A that it's in the CID because they have to charge more for the goods and services. So it creates an unlevel playing field as far as I'm concerned. So I'm probably not going to be in favor of many CIDs.
Thank you.
Just straight up, I'm probably going to be against the CIDs. Many of them do not have we'll just say a term limit. In other words, they don't fall off, they just continue forever and ever. I have an issue with paying my tax dollars or anybody else's to a business person to make them money, where I have to spend additional money. Not only do I pay the tax, but I also have to pay addition for the product that I buy. So I think those need to be looked at on a case-by-case basis, and there needs to be a term limit, if you want to say, or a yearly, not necessarily yearly, but say a 5, 10, 15, 20 year, and then it's done. People are being taxed to death right now, and the economy and our pay, we're in trouble. And our elderly are going to have to make a decision between food, medicine, heat, air, or these taxes. And I want to help protect our elderly and our fixed income people. And additional taxes is not right.
All right, thank you.
Kind of feeling like John here down this end, it sounds like I'm a parrot, just repeating everything that's been said already. I think it would have to be a case-by-case deal. You know, if you've got a piece of property that's run down and it doesn't look good, and you've got somebody coming in that wants to try to work on it, it would be nice to have the extra funds to make it look nicer, to bring in more businesses. So that would be one benefit of it. And then you look at the other side of it, like Ron said, it's an unfair playing field. You've got people that are getting money for buying something and putting a business in. What made them so special that they got that favor and business B didn't? So I think you'd have to look at the whole big picture, and I don't know if you can just answer that right here without looking at the whole situation and going case by case.
Thank you. John Neeson, if I remember right, you did vote on this, correct?
No, you're saying it was in 2020. I was appointed in 2021.
All right.
Yeah.
So, if you had the opportunity to vote on this, or in the future will,
So
how would you-
largely, I'm not a huge fan of the CIDs. Again, it'd be like parroting a lot of what's said. The tricky part is, we all said we want to do what we can to bring in businesses. But if a developer comes in, buys a piece of property, does all the development itself, the city's done nothing. We have no skin in the game. So there's got to be a balance in helping attract businesses to want to come here. The city's going to have to participate. But if we spend money or gift them something, then it could be called corporate welfare. And everybody says they don't want that. So we have two ways to go here, and both don't look good. So I'd be in favor of writing them maybe a little differently. I'd like more rules and regulations in place for those, how the money's spent, where the money goes if it's unused. They definitely have their weak points, but I can't say that I'm in favor of them or against them. I can just say I would want to work harder at trying to write them better, maybe.
thank you. And Mr. McClellan.
First, I think it needs to be one set deal for the whole city. I think where it comes down to 1/4%, but I think small business needs to be treated the same as the big business. I know big business does more money, pays more taxes, but I think the little guy needs to have the same to fix a pothole out here in his driveway as, say, Walmart. I mean, that's just the way I feel, and I think it needs to be worked out where everybody gets a share back to help even to put brick back on their building. That's just the way I feel about it.
Thank you. Our next question, we are going to change things up a little bit to give the fellows down on the right side a chance to answer first. So,
I gotta start down there.
So, Mr. McClellan, what are one or maybe two local programs or initiatives or possibly even problems that you are most interested in addressing should you be elected?
Well, it's hard to say because we got a lot of problems. First, I think the sewer water, we need to get our system built up back halfway decent, that we know that we're not getting anything put in the ground that shouldn't be there. I know our sewer plant, I call it sewer plant, I know it's wastewater. Every time it rains, it floods, so they can't operate it till the rain quits and it goes down. And back to our drain system, we have a drain system in town, but if you drive down the streets, why do you have 3 or 4 inches of water running in the middle of the street when you got a drain over on the side? And back to the electric part, again, I'm back, I worked for the city for 21 years. I work as a lineman. And our system, to me, is going downhill. We have a solar farm to get us more power, but if we don't do our infrastructure, it's not done to us any good.
Thank you. Mr. Neeson.
I'd say I'm probably most passionate about tourism right now. A lot of the needs that we have in the city, we just need tax revenue. And we can either raise tax rates on the individuals that live here, which would be largely devastating, or we can raise the amount of tax dollars that are brought in by tourism. So if people come in for sporting events, concerts, any of that kind of stuff, we're bringing in more revenue that we can spend on these projects we've got to get fixed. So one thing I'm really fond of is the tourism grant money that's been started through the hotel motel tax. Anybody with a good idea can reach out and get their own event planned and have assistance from the city. So we've seen some really neat stuff happen recently. We've seen You know, there's dedicated bike routes that have been built. There's just all kinds of stuff that's gone on that is helping to bring people in. And so that gets me really excited. The more we see people on the ground level just step up and do this stuff, because we can't at the end of the day rely on 5 people on council and city employees to handle everything. There's so much energy we need from everyone to get this stuff done. So I think that's a great way to engage the public, and it's been largely successful.
Thank you. Mr. Bradshaw.
I'm a big fan of parks, stuff that people can do as a family, go to share these places. You know, the splash pad I think was a great thing. I've heard nothing but good things about that, except for some vandalism, which I think is solvable by a few small things. It wouldn't take long. Mr. Grinning could probably up out of that in the camera and probably take care of a lot of that problem. But to be truthfully honest with you, our parks, you know, the pool was shut down for a year or so, and I can remember hearing a lot of people that were upset about that because they had no place to take their kids swimming besides at the lakes or the streams a long way. They didn't have a way to walk down here to town to go to the parks and do the things that are local. We know we have a lot of people that don't have cars that can drive a lot, but they can walk across town and do that. So the stuff that they've done at the parks, I think, is wonderful. If we can keep that up, I think that's something continually we can enjoy and use. The Galloway Park expansion and doing all the paving they've done down there to make that enjoyable and walkable. I think those are all things that are just really good for our citizens to have here to use locally.
Thank you. Mr. Burgess.
I would say that there's several issues. One would be the infrastructure, which we could say the parks fall underneath it, our electric grid falls underneath it, our law enforcement, fire department, county sheriff, all that falls within that infrastructure that we need to work on. Because if we got a good electric grid and I'm a corporation wanting to come in, that may be one of the first questions I ask. And if we're shaky, I'm not gonna bring my plant here. So there's things that we need to work on within the city and including the county as well, together to make the area more appreciated and more appealing to other individuals that are out of state or in state. So, yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Grinning.
Can I use all the time I didn't use on the other questions with this one, because I got a lot to say. Basically, I'm very passionate about small business. I'm very passionate about small business having a voice and a vote on city council. Someone to represent it, someone that has to get up, go to work every day, make payroll, and feels the pain that a mandate or something can place on an employer on a small business. That may affect a small business a lot harder than a big business. Very passionate about that. If elected, I do want to be a driving force to help keep our economic engine trucking along here in West Plains. I'm going to switch gears to something else I'm really excited about, is our total solar eclipse event coming up in 2024. Okay, West Plains is going to be in the path of a total solar eclipse. It gets easier to say than when you say it. And there was a program at the Chamber of Commerce launch where Melissa came up and she was telling all about this. It was the first I was heard of it, kind of blown away. They started giving stats like Jefferson City had 10,000 something visitors come to their town for that week, which is obviously great for us here. A lot of visitors weren't just Missourians, there were people from all over the world. I think it's an awesome opportunity to showcase our city. I think it goes hand in hand with how tourism is going to help drive economic development here in West Plains, and I'm pumped about it. I can't wait.
Thank you. And Jessica Neese.
Well, I like being at the end because I can say I agree with just about everything everyone said. So I'm going to make you repeat the question though.
Not a problem. So what are one or two local programs or initiatives or possibly even problems that are most interested to you to address?
So one of the things I would really like to address in the next 4 years is our downtown. We have a very unique and beautiful downtown that could easily be an economic driver for West Plains. You know, we've all seen kind of the ebb and flow of the development downtown, whether restaurants have opened and closed or events have come and gone. but we have an opportunity there to make a really beautiful space with a lot of retail businesses. We've all been to other areas that have thriving downtowns, and I hear about them all the time. Why can't we do that? What should we be doing? You know, and talking about a CID, not necessarily a CID, but there are taxing elements that can be, or districts that can be applied to downtown, whether it's making it a historic district, an entertainment district, or utilizing it in that way where those sales tax dollars and property tax dollars can be reinvested in downtown, helping businesses maybe make those old buildings more efficient, beautifying the area, making parking a little bit better. I know that's been an ongoing issue downtown for a lot of retail businesses, and that's why they've left. And to also promote events downtown. I would like to see events. I remember taking my kids to events downtown when they were smaller, and I met everyone in town there. So I would really like to see that happen again.
Thank you. For the next question, we do go back to Mr. McClellan. And I am going to rephrase the question that was submitted. So, do you live inside the city limits of West Plains? And if so, what issues have you seen around your neighborhood that has helped to push you to run for city council?
Yeah, I live in the city. You have to run for council, but, and I'll tell you where I live. I live on Rhonda Street, 2200 block. We do have some drain problems that needs to be, and it is a pretty good neighborhood, but we have HUD houses around us. And most of the people that get in there is pretty good. We do get some few that's not, but I lived there for almost 30 years in the same house, raised my family there. But we do need a better drain system and a little more pavement on the streets.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Neeson?
So in a town this size, I feel like my neighborhood is just the entire town. I do live in the city limits. But really what motivated me to want to be involved in city council in the beginning, it wasn't local to my home. It was just seeing everything going on around us. I saw potential in the downtown, potential with the Civic Center. I saw needs with our police and fire, infrastructure improvements. I just saw lots of work that needed to be done. Some of it was well underway, but I just wanted to lend my energy to help it. My primary motivator, when I was a kid, I used to go visit my grandparents, and I think I want my kids to bring their kids to my house. I want that point to come. And if West Plains is this hole in the middle of nowhere, nobody's gonna be excited to come visit their old granddad here. So that's really my motivation. I want to see as much goodness come out of this town as possible so we can just keep making it a better place for all of us to live.
Thank you. Mr. Bradshaw?
Yes, I do live in town. I have since I moved here in 2004, full-time, and lived in the same house, haven't moved anywhere else. The neighborhood I was in, when I moved in there was about half the houses that there are now, and they continually build houses up, and then they brought in some pavement. I was a little disappointed that the city didn't require my neighborhood to have the curb and guttering like they do in a lot of other places. It was grandfathered in or something to that effect, but they did pave it. There's been some issues with water and sewer, but they've had to cut, and it just seems like it takes a while for the city crews to get down through there and get those fixed. I understand that they're busy, but I had like a hole that you could fit a house in, and it was there for like 4 months. And I complained to a couple of the neighbors across the road, and one of them works for the city, and so it was a couple days later somebody showed up and fixed it up. So I just think that we live in this community together no matter where you are, if you're on the edge of town, if you're right downtown, and I think everybody should have a say-so, or just as important. It doesn't matter where you live as long as you're in town. Doesn't matter if you live up on the hill, the country club, or where you live. Everybody should have a say-so in what goes on around here.
Thank you. Mr. Burgess.
I have lived in West Plains for many, many, many years. I grew up here, was gone and came back. In my neighborhood, what I'm seeing is a lot of homeless people and a lot of drug activity. And our law enforcement works on it. I don't know what happens in the courts, but you see the same people over and over again. We need to get that cleaned up. We need to do something with our homeless. We need to do something with the drug activity. The other is our creek that runs through town, to me, needs some cleaning out. My understanding that there was an environmental group years ago that protested about some little critter, and my response had I gone would have been, well, if a 2,000, 3,000 pound car can go downstream, so can your little critter. So we need to work on the drugs, we need to work on the homeless, and some other infrastructure things. But I love this town, I like this town, and I want to see us grow, but I want to see us grow in the right way.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin.
Yes, I do live in the city limits of West Plains. My neighborhood had zero impact on wanting to run for city council. But I do want to take up some of my 2 minutes, so I'm going to address that a little bit. My wife's a real estate agent, so we moved about 5 years ago. Before we moved, we had a pretty nice home on the public golf course. Got to kind of watch the whole golf course in there, and I've been pretty passionate about keeping that golf course a golf course, keeping it an amenity for West Plains, figuring out the financial issues. It's got to be some math at this point to get that fixed, but I would hate to see that turned into a walking park or anything else that would just destroy all the property values of all the new homes out there.
Thank you. And Jessica.
Yes, I live in the city limits and live within walking distance of our downtown. I wasn't necessarily motivated by anything that I saw in my neighborhood. I have 2 young kids, and they are the reason why I'm motivated to be on city council. Kind of the same sentiment that John said. You know, I love the idea of my grandchildren coming to visit. So so for me, it's about creating a place of opportunity for my kids, maybe my grandkids, who knows? But ultimately, that's what I'm motivated by.
Thank you. As a note, we do have 20 minutes remaining of our Meet the Candidates event. Jessica, we're going to start this next question with you. It does have something to do with something Mr. Burgess stated earlier, talking about homeless people in the streets and mental health issues as well as drug addiction. What can the city do about this, and what would you be willing to support?
Oh, okay. Homelessness is a very complicated issue. There are lots of reasons that people are homeless. There are mental health reasons, there are drug abuse and addiction reasons, there's the lack of affordable housing, that's an issue. The homelessness that I've experienced, that I've seen, is probably more on the mental health and drug addiction side of things. So as far as what a city can do, a city can, as a police department, you know, but that's not going to solve a homelessness problem. That can solve a safety issue where if somebody is camped out on their private property, that's a problem, and the police need to be involved. You know, I think affordable housing is probably one of the major things that we can help try to get those developments in town to make more affordable housing. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Thank you. Mr. Gridden.
Can I go sit on that end for this question? You know, the city addressing it's one thing. We have, at times it seems like it's a big problem. And I think more so than the city, the community has been addressing this. For example, with Samaritan Outreach, you know, they're putting all the people they can in there when they can, helping them get placed with jobs, trying to eliminate some of the factors that made them homeless so they can move on and move into their own place or some affordable housing, like Jessica said. You know, the churches around here are really good about opening their doors when it's cold outside and everything else. So I think that really has to be addressed more so as a community than as a city.
Thank you. Mr. Burgess.
I think there's several levels with this. We have the criminal element where better courts, better judges, better facilities or bigger facilities for those criminals. At the same time, for homeless veterans can go to salutes and get some place to stay, some food on their, on the table, something to eat, kind of getting taken care of, and they don't have to worry about that. Some of them do have mental issues, of which if they can go through the VA, they will, or local counselors. We can get them involved. If somebody has a drug problem, we can try to get them cleaned off of it and give them an incentive to stay off of it. So it's kind of a multi-thing. At the same time, we have to look at, can we get grants to build small houses like some communities have that these individuals can stay in? And I'm referring to our homeless that are just, they have no place to go. They've got a place that's warm, they've got some electricity, they can do some things. Again, grant-wise versus raising the taxes. So there are some things that we need to work on, and it's a multi-fashion to do so. As a community, we all need to work together.
Thank you. Mr. Bradshaw.
It's a societal thing. It's not so much a city thing. I don't think there's anything that the city of West Plains can do to stop the homelessness. I think there's people that choose that life no matter what. I've met them over the years. I've met people that they were trying to get here. They're on their way to Springfield. They just need to have a place to light for a day or two here. Then they're on their way there. That's how they move. That's how they go. They don't have any standard of living. They just carry what they can on their back and they keep going. They wear out their welcome where they're at and move on. They kind of use what resources we have as a community to help people that want to be helped. I think that Samaritan Outreach is a great program, but I see a lot of people abuse that program. Local people that, they get kicked out of their house, so they go over there for the night or two. And then they're just in and out, and use it up, and then they go on. So I feel like society-wise, and I hate to repeat again, but we've got a great neighborhood here. People are really good about helping people out. We've got people that stand on the corners and make more money than a guy working a full job all day long. And that goes back to the police action of moving these people along. We need some kind of panhandling ordinance or something to stop these people. We may have it, I don't know of it, but we need to be able to, move these people on when the time comes. We don't need them causing a downtrodden on our economy here or dragging us down. We need to have programs helping people out, and I think that goes back to society, not to the city.
Thank you. Mr. Neeson.
We're really running out of things to say by the time we get So largely the question was, what can city council do about this? So I think you find any town about our size, they're gonna have the same problem. This isn't a problem that gets fixed with a single ordinance or a tax increase or tax drop. It is a very complicated thing, but I think it sounds like we all agree is that it takes a community effort. There's some great programs out there helping. From the city side, what can we do? Enforce the laws, try to make our town competitive for businesses and people who want to relocate here. That drives property value up and gives people opportunities where they might not have had one before. But our hands are somewhat tied on addressing a problem like homelessness over the span of the next year or 2 years.
And Mr. McClellan.
Well, I think they need help. We got, community does help them, but if you don't get them where they're they wanna help themselves, they're not gonna help themselves. And, I've been out, I work out on the streets most of the time every day and talk to them and see a lot going on. But if they don't wanna help themselves, they're not gonna do anything to help themselves. And we can try to help them, but sooner or later, we just don't have, well, me, I'm gonna have to turn my back to them and go on and do my job, or let them go do what they want, because they're gonna do it anyway. But if the city can come up with a plan, that would be nice. But I don't, off the top of my head, I don't see anything that we can do, any major thing to, and you can't really force them to run off. I mean, it's just the way the people want to live. And I don't condemn them for that.
Thank you. Now, this next question I expect is probably going to go fairly quickly, but we'll see. So, this is a two-part question because I figured these answers might go pretty quick. Do you know the duties and responsibilities of the seat that you are running for, and have you read the city charter? We are going to start with Mr. McClellan.
I have read parts of it. I haven't sat down and read it all. And I think the council should get together and see what we need to do. I think it still needs to come back to the people. That I think the people should have more say in the city government instead of just 4 or 5 of us running, thinking that we know what the people want. I think we need to have town meetings. I know we did it a long time ago. But I think we need other people besides just the people on the council to see what's going on in the city.
Thank you. Mr. Neeson.
Yes and yes. So I would say our town charter is pretty long. This is part of the reason we have a city attorney that sits there with us so that he doesn't let us go astray. Our city administrator does a good job making sure we don't go off track. If you gave me a 100-question test on our city charter, I bet I'd get a B+. So there's a lot there. It's hard to memorize the whole thing, but we're constantly needing to go back and review it and make sure we're staying within the charter when we operate. So.
Thank you. Mr. Bradshaw.
I have not read it, so, but that is on my list of things to do if I get elected. I'm pretty busy, and so it'll be one of the things that I have to brush up on real fast, so, like, I'm sure it's complicated, like anything else.
Thank you. And Mr. Burgess?
Just very little of it. Kind of like Mr. Bradshaw, it's in a waiting period. And I've been sick, so I haven't been able to do a lot of stuff that I wanted to do. I'm about a month or 2 behind. But yes, that's one thing that needs to be read and understand so that as a council member can be more effective for the people. Because it's the people I want to represent and their will, not my will.
Thank you. Mr. Grin.
Kind of like Mr. Neeson, yes and yes. I've also talked to current members of council, former members of council to find out what kind of time commitments involved to make sure I could handle it before I made the decision to run for the seat.
Yes and yes. I've gone through the city charter many, many times. I do not have it memorized, but yes, I've gone through it. One of the things about being on city council is that, and I think often people sometimes think we can do more than we can. The function of a city council member is to, we're a legislative body, so we pass laws, ordinances, resolutions, and the other function we serve is to supervise the city administrator. He is the manager of the city. That is all in the charter. One of the other more important functions of city council is we go over the city's budget, and it's our responsibility to make sure that taxpayer dollars are being used effectively and to the best that we can do. I'm trying to
Thank you. And I do believe this will most likely be our final question of the day. Jessica, we will start with you. What are your thoughts on expanding the number of electric vehicle charging stations in the city of West Plains? And do you favor more city government involvement, such as adding these charging stations to parking lots?
I mean, I would love to see more of them. There are companies who are interested in putting them in. So I don't think that the city will need to actually pay for any of those. There are grants available for that. I have seen several of those vehicles in town. I think that it makes sense, especially considering where we're located. As people travel, this is a great place to stop, whether it's to shop or eat here or stay in a hotel. And to have that available for people will add to our economic development, frankly.
Thank you. Mr. Grennan?
I don't think the city should own a gas station either, so I say let the market take care of itself. And, you know, these vehicles are gonna become more popular, it's kind of an inevitability, but by the same token, I don't wanna put in a charging station somewhere where somebody can charge for their car for free when somebody, a small business, may decide that, hey, here's my little niche in this town, I can build this and charge people for it. I don't think the city should compete on that level for that.
Thank you. Mr. Burgess?
Gas companies came in and built gas stations. Electric can come in and build charging. As a city, I don't believe that we should jump into that and support that, other than you want to come in, here's the property, here's the amount, and you can build your charging station. I don't know if people really grasp, not just the charging stations, but the whole idea. Yes, we're talking green stuff, but, okay. Will those same individuals give up all their electronics? So the bottom line is that a private company should build their own charging station and charge for whatever they want as far as the vehicles from charging themselves, just like a gas station, just like a gas pump.
Thank you. And Mr. Bradshaw?
Don't think the city should pay for it to put it in for somebody to charge their car for free. So they should just have the state put them in around the bypass, because by the time you get from one end of town to the other, your car can be charged again. Because you have to stop at every light going through town anymore.
Right.
I mean, you'd have enough time to get it done before you got to the other side of town, and I guess we're adding another one. So, you know, we've changed that from the bypass to Main Street. I don't think the city should be involved in it, though. I understand that it is gonna be something in the wave of the future, you know, for moving around, but I think it's impractical for this part of the country here. We don't have the infrastructure for the charging. I don't even know if the city could handle if everybody started charging their cars at home every night. I don't think electronic, electric wise, we could even handle that. So I don't think we should get involved in it until we absolutely have to.
Thank you.
Yes, so I'm a free market capitalist, and I think the market will eventually demand electric charging stations, and then it'll happen. When it's profitable to a business, it'll happen. There's gonna have to be stuff reviewed. You know, like Paul brought up, can our infrastructure even support electric charging stations? How many cars are we talking? And so the city's gonna have to play a role in deciding if we can even support it. And I think we should be trying to prepare to support it in the sense of having the infrastructure in place. We don't need to be giving away any power, but I would love to see us be able to supply the amount of power needed so that they can sell to charge those electric cars as demand just continues to increase. I mean, not a day goes by I don't see at least one Prius here in town, and you know, we're a small town in the corner of Missouri, so they're coming. I think we should prepare for it.
Thank you.
Well, back to being private business. The city's not in to be a private business. I don't think the city should be anywhere private. And we need to go green to save our air and to save our trees. And I think we can probably supply most of the power because that's where I work at. And but but I don't think the city ought to be giving it to them free. We could set up a station, have a credit card. They can plug it in, put the credit card in there, and it takes money off the credit card to pay for it, but I still don't think the city ought to be involved in private business.
Thank you. And that is all the time we have. I would like to say thank you to our current city council members and the competitors. I wish you all the best of luck in the upcoming election. Finally, I would like to say a big thank you, of course, to Wages Brewing Company for hosting us here at the 2022 Meet the City Council.